In the US, most of our energy comes from oil. Like it or not, we need oil to get around, to make cement, drugs, plastic, paper. Even our roads are made out of oil and gravel. Is there even one product that doesn't require some form of energy? Not one. Yet many feel that energy is a demon of this world and oil is the devil. It's so crazy to see these government experts and globalists flying off to Davos or Luxembourg on luxury jets, burning up 400 gallons an hour of jet fuel, and they're going to important meetings to shut down oil production. Or they're going to the Paris Accords, where the nations of the world have decided the US must pay third world nations $400 billion a year, every year, because, well, they need the money and we use too much oil. Of course, China, India, and Russia will never be paying energy fines, and they won't be cutting down on energy use anytime soon. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that the US and Western Europe admit their guilt and stop using so much energy. Now, the big scare tactic is supposed to make oil use so reprehensible is climate change / global warming, that is. And the oil use is the culprit. And that means Western Europe and USA are to blame for any hot days we are having. The global warming alarmists have plenty of studies to show that the Earth's temperature is heating up and that oil is to blame. But there are also studies that conclusively show CO2 levels to follow temperature rise, which is a problem for the energy haters. So let's say we go back 10,000 years when New York City was under a mile of solid ice, when camels, dire wolves, and saber-toothed tigers roamed the streets of Los Angeles. And you could walk from Santa Barbara to Santa Rosa Island if a cave bear didn't get you. The world was much colder than today, about 15 degrees colder, and the ocean was down 400 feet from today's coastlines. Then, for the last 8,000 years, the entire world has been warming up, and the ocean has risen 400 feet, all without demon oil. But still, the alarmists say oil is probably very, very bad. And that's the final word. Tonight's guests are Greg Farnsworth from the I Am Dependent newspaper. And tonight our moderator and media mogul is Gary Michaels. Welcome, Gary. What's our questions tonight?
All right, what a show we're going to have today. No better topic than talking about oil and gas right here in California. Is it a good idea for the federal government to send oil production overseas? What say you?
So we're sending production overseas. Well, actually, we should be cutting our use of oil. The government should regulate our oil usage so that we don't put harmful CO2 into the atmosphere. We are 6% of the population. We use 24% of all of fossil fuels. So we are the country that can limit CO2 by our use. You know, the government to make mandates, which have seen some in the 2030 time range, where the internal combustion engine cars will not be sold and everything will be either electric, hybrid, or solar. Who knows, in 10 years. So that's the direction we should be going to eliminate this greenhouse gases that we're putting out. Because the Earth, we have one Earth, and if we blow it, we'll have nowhere else to live. So this is very critical.
Please, Tommy, please respond.
Now, as to the question, is it a good idea for the federal government to send oil production overseas, basically as sending it to Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, anywhere but the US, because the goal here has been to shut down US oil production. Now, you got to ask, why would that be a good thing? We had pretty low oil prices. People were able to get around. Poor people, young people, rich people, everybody had pretty good oil prices. And the people who worked in the oil industry in the United States had good jobs. those are good paying jobs. They pay 30 an hour, 40 an hour. You can move up and be making 300,000 a year as an older person in the oil business. And now that administration is begging the Saudis, can you guys lower your oil prices because it's hurting our people? This is ridiculous. Not only did they destroy all these jobs, they just sent oil production to probably the most polluting, dirtiest oil producer in the world, the whole Middle East. They don't give a rat's butt about the environment. It's not a problem. So I think it's not a good idea to send our oil production overseas.
That's an excellent point, Tom. And my understanding as well, the oil and gas tax revenue, the federal government is about $111 billion a year. So I'm guessing that that's going to be a lowered number for 2021. Or do you have anything you can add about that?
It's a bad idea. It hurts American businesses. And there's a lot of other reasons why they would want to send it away, because all those American dollars go to Saudi Arabia and then are dribbled back through a lot of not good avenues. The money comes back in bad ways to fund bad things.
Well, the next part of the question is asking about a national energy policy favoring one energy over another, a good idea. And it sounds like you've already partially answered that, in that by favoring one over the other, we're losing jobs. But can you add to the point?
As far as national energy policy, it seems they shouldn't eliminate our jobs here in the nation. And to favor solar and wind is questionable, although it plays to their party's base and keeps support from their party coming for those reasons, but it puts a lot of people out of work.
And Greg, what do you think, if you were working with President Biden right now, what would you be whispering in his ear about a national energy policy?
The policy of renewable energy through windmills, solar panels, other forms of energy that don't involve fossil fuel consumption in the formation of the energy. I also would cut back on cars and motorcycles, transportation and trains that use fossil fuel, and make our all of our transportation as much as possible electric, so we can use renewable energy to run it. And I would make a 10-year plan to eliminate fossil fuel consumption by 10% per year. So within 5 to 10 years, we're using half of what we're using now. Well, the cost, what we can do is fund the cost through the government, who can tax all these billionaires, put an excise tax on income for, above, if you make above $1 million a year, and then we could subsidize the extra cost through the taxing of these wealthy people.
I see. Okay, so billionaires are the answer to what it is we need to do energy-wise here in the state. Do you think, Greg, last question, do you think there are enough billionaires to cover the nut that we're going to be spending on energy?
I think with the billionaires, individuals, and the companies they own, the some of these companies are worth $1 trillion, and they don't pay enough tax. So there's plenty of capital out there the government could use, but it's tied up in, let's see, Tesla just went over $1 trillion in capitalization. So a lot of these companies don't pay enough tax, and that would be a good source of income for the government.
I see. Okay. Well, the only problem, of course, we have is the chip shortage, which is impacting the production of automobiles in the country right now. So we're a little slow to deliver hybrids, at least for a while, right?
Right. I mean, 3 points come to mind. The first one is that all these anti-oil arguments are based upon a fallacy. The fallacy that oil use is causing planet-wide warming, which is going to destroy our civilizations. And this is a fallacy. If you simply look 10,000 years ago There were a mile of ice on New York City. That ice is all gone. The planet heated up without any oil, without any humans. All the camels, all the dire wolves, all the bear caves, gone. They all died off because the planet warmed up all by itself. And so the idea that, gasoline use, jet fuel use is causing this warming or continued warming is a fallacy. And so if you accept that fallacy, then you can go along with the whole idea that we have to stop using fuels that create CO2, which is going into the atmosphere, which is allegedly trapping our solar heat and making the planet heat up. But it's just not true. The planet heated up all by itself. Secondly, the thing is, government doesn't suffer when gasoline energy prices go up. Government doesn't suffer at all. It simply pays a higher price for gasoline to drive its minions around and fund its programs and build its buildings. It doesn't affect government at all. It affects the people. And the people should not be suffering because the government buys into a faulty notion that oil use is destroying the planet. If there are people in the United States who are convinced that is the case, they can simply sell their cars, move out of their mansions, get some bicycles, and live in some teepees, and they can add their voice to their actions. And then the third point is, if we stop using oil and go to batteries or whatever the hell we're going to do, China is not going to do that. Russia's not going to do that. India's not going to do that. The rest of the world is not going to do it. In fact, they want money from us because they don't have enough infrastructure, but we have too much. We use too much oil. And then fourthly, sure, we use a lot of energy in the United States, but that's because we create most of the wealth of the world. And so, yeah, we have 6% of the population. We create about, 70% of the world's wealth, if you consider Europe and the United States. That's Western Europe and the US. So if we're supposed to feel guilty about using energy, I would say, well, you know what? We create most of the wealth in this world. If the rest of the world wants to be poor, even poorer than they are already, the good way to do it would be to destroy the United States economy. And that's my final word.
Ladies and gentlemen, the story you are about to see is true. The names have been changed.
Now, see, it was good, Greg. You're putting out great stuff because I'm picking up numbers that I don't have to think about. You're bringing them to the.
I'm expecting Sergeant Friday to walk in any moment now.
Just the facts, ma'am. What was that movie where the guy, it was like a fax coming in, and he said, "Just the facts, ma'am." An update on the Jack Webb story.
Like airplane.
Yeah. Oh, does anybody even know that? Right?
We're in a commercial break right now. So. Okay, all right. So I guess I'll pick up here with question number 3 then. I was going to throw in something to Tom, but his ending was so eloquent, I thought it was the absolute time to cut to a commercial break.
Yeah.
Here we are back after that break and with Tom and Greg and taking on more oil and gas issues that impact everyday consumers right here in California. So Santa Barbara, the county, has initiated a program to switch utility control to a local board. They're going to be implementing renewable energy sources into the city's base of energy's users. This is to increase the use of solar and wind power and, of course, reduce oil-fired power generation. So, Greg, I thought I would start by you, and it sounds like you would agree that that's not a good idea, but a great idea. Would I be wrong about that?
No, you're hitting it right on the head that we need to go towards renewable non-fossil fuel-based energy as soon as we can, as quickly as we can, due to the imminent threat of the greenhouse gases. Once you accept that, then the idea of going to renewables makes total sense, and it's for the survival of the planet. And like I said, we have lots of wealth in this country which could easily subsidize these forms of energy, which might be more expensive than the current fossil fuel driven economy. But these are changes you have to adapt, much like our economy has over the last 150 years. We went from farming to industrial to informational. So this is just another, metamorphosis of our economy.
I just want to ask you very briefly about nuclear energy. That's a great non-renewable resource. How do you feel about nuclear?
Well, I do like nuclear because as a progressive, I can see that it is not generating greenhouse gas, and our countries in France have had success doing it. So if we follow their lead, we could probably generate more energy with nuclear. So I'm for that, for use of nuclear energy. Of course, it has to be regulated like the French do it. Not we don't need any more 3 Mile Islands and companies that don't follow federal regulation.
Okay. So like the French, nuclear and a good glass of champagne. So Tom, whenever I'm in Santa Barbara, I run into someone that tells me that there's no dispute. Science says that greenhouse gas emissions are killing us all and need to be immediately ended. So I wanted to follow up with that and just ask you to continue on with what Greg was saying. How do you feel about Santa Barbara initiating this program to switch utility controls to a local board that will be implementing renewable energy sources into the city's base of energy users? What say you?
Right. It's a further complication being added by government. They're going to take away our utility companies and put them in the hands of a government city board. And you can see how well the city leaders run things. So you can imagine what's going to happen. Now, the prices are going to be higher. They even said that in the pamphlet. Prices are going to go up because, of course, wind and solar cost more than normal energy, but they're going to mix them in and blend them in. And so you won't really notice. The prices will just go up and you'll feel good about yourself because you'll be using some renewables. And it's by force. It's by force this is happening. The utility companies aren't given a choice. The city just said, we're doing this. Now, to the city's benefit, we are able to opt out as particular people that live in this area. But I think eventually there'll be no opt out and you'll be in with higher prices and eventually they'll just drive the utilities out of business until they go to solar panels everywhere. Now, I think that, in general, it's creating more complexity. And that's the general theme of the boogeyman, Marxism, more and more complexity. You get complex government, you get experts, you get technocrats. Pretty soon they're running everything. Now they want to run our utility companies. Where is this going to end?
Well, would you, just on that point, so then what you're saying is the consumers will be the net loser here, that they'll be spending a lot more money on energy policy as you see it with all these technocrats involved. Is that correct?
Right. The technocrats are going to get paid. There'll be more county, city employees deciding how much to charge for our new energy. And it's all because we're going to be feeling better about using renewables. And this all goes back to the first fallacy that gas energy is causing climate warming, which is going to destroy the planet. That is a fallacy. Now, if we accept that fallacy, then everything else has to bow down. Anyone who's against it is a planet killer. And this is another theme that they're using. If you don't bow down to solar and wind power, you are a planet killer. But as I'm saying, the planet heated up for the last 12,000 years without any oil. The oceans rose up a ½ inch a year, every year for the last 12,000 years. Now they're rising up about 1/100th of an inch a year. I mean, that is a slowdown from what's been happening for the last 10,000 years. So I'm going back to that fallacy. It can't be shown that we caused the last heat up. And it certainly can't be shown that we're causing any heat now, because it's less than it's been the last 10,000 years. The planet is actually slowing down at its rate of heating. We may be reaching the peak of the warm season in Earth. We may be going back to another ice age. Nobody really knows. There's cycles that we can look at, but to go off half-cocked, Chicken Little about the oceans rising 1/100th of an inch a year is a fallacy to worry about.
Ladies and gentlemen, the story you are about to see is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
So, Greg, I'm just thinking if what Tom says is true, and you came to realize through your research and study that it is true, I mean, would you be going out and buying a $500,000 RV that gets 6 miles a gallon and feeling good about it? I'm kidding there. So look,
I didn't get that one either.
So, Greg, let's continue along this line. So, is Santa Barbara's also outlawed gas pipes to new buildings, and only electric appliances are going to be allowed. Obviously, that's going to impact consumers in a big way. But what do you think about that idea?
On the surface, they're trying to go towards renewable energy, and if you can renew the energy at 50% through gas or through wind turbines and that sort of thing, then that would eliminate the use of burning natural gas, which does create sort of CO2. So I think in the long term, it makes sense.
Tom, any more insight into the gas pipes that have been outlawed to new buildings in Santa Barbara?
Well, I'd just like to point out that is just yet another implementation of political environmentalism into the city. The city has decided they don't allow any more gas heaters. It's going to be very expensive to heat homes now. If you build a new home in Santa Barbara, you're going to be all electric, or you're going to have to go with solar, which actually might be okay. But just the fact that they have to mandate things, it's just, we're getting back to government mandating things. How can this be good? The government mandates that you have to do something. Well, why are they doing that? Is there something inherently wrong with using a gas heater in your house? Well, yes. According to them, you're using fossil fuels. And secondly, I'd like to point out, if this government mandate forces everyone to get electric power in their house, so pretty soon California is using more and more electricity. I'd like to point out, California is buying electricity from other states that run gas-fired generators, where they're allowed to do that. So it is nutty to think that we're going to, it's a feel-good process. We just buy electricity from another state where it's cheaper. People buy a Tesla. Oh, I'm going to save the environment. I'm not using gasoline. I just plug my car in and I get, electricity for free. But that electricity is coming from Arizona or Nevada or New Mexico, some coal-fired plants, natural gas plants, which, it doesn't make sense. If California was filled with nuclear plants cranking out electricity and we could plug in our electric cars to that, I would buy an electric truck. I'm not against it. It's just that the whole matter is based on a fallacy, and the government is coming in and telling us what to do. Americans don't like that, and that's my final word. Commercial break. Greg, what's happening? I can't see you.
I'm typing. I just got a note that I got an exemption from the vaccine from work.
Wow.
Exemption. So it works.
Religious.
I just got the note. Yeah, I filed a religious letter.
When they hear you're on this show, they'll probably kick you out again.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I'd like to return to the conversation by asking this question. Is energy usage really destroying the planet?
This was a question asked by a judge in a case recently. Someone was claiming, fossil fuel use is destroying the planet. We're going to be underwater in no time at all. And the judge said, well, tell me this, plaintiff, what ended the last ice age? And they had no answer. And he said, case dismissed. That was 10,000 years ago. Everything warmed up. We're in a warm period now. It wasn't caused by oil. And so I got to say also, the idea that we have to be without oil is very convenient to other forces on the planet. As for instance, Soros did say the biggest impediment to world freedom is the United States. Now, I don't know what he meant by that, but a lot of other countries depend and look up to American freedom. But some of the big players don't want us to be successful. And one of the best ways to do that would be to take away our oil production, which just happened a few months ago. And so I recommend we do not get rid of our oil production in this country.
Okay, I'd like to rebut that. We have over 95% of the scientists throughout the world have signed on that CO2 is causing the Earth's temperature to rise right now. Okay, so we may have had fluctuations in the past, but right now, CO2 is accelerating. So that is a bad situation. One, we're noticing that hot areas, we're noticing climate change.